Today, the idea we're going to be talking about is that fractions are division. And I think that we kind of already know this, okay? If we want to take something and find half of it, we have to split it into two equal groups. And we know that splitting into groups is division. And we know that when we take something up and we're cutting it up into pieces, that we're dividing it. So this, I don't think, is anything shocking, but let's just take a look at it and have the light bulbs go off for a second, okay? So fractions are division. So when you have something like 1/4, okay, what you really have is 1 divided by 4. You're taking one whole and you're cutting it into 4 pieces. And when you do that, each piece is a fourth. So if you take one of those pieces, you have 1/4. So you have 1 divided by 4, okay? 2/4 could be similar. You have 2 divided by 4. So 2/4 means you have 2 wholes and you've divided them into fourths, because remember, the denominator tells us the size of our pieces. So, I mean, we can also represent 2/4 another way. But so let's say we have 2 wholes and we cut each of our wholes into fourths. So we would have 1 from each of those wholes. We would have 2/4. We can also show 2/4 this way, okay? But if we took 1 from each of those and put them together, we would have 2/4. All right, so a fraction is a division problem. So this kind of goes back, if you think about making improper fractions into mixed numbers, what do? You divide. So if you had 23 thirds and you wanted to turn that into a mixed number, hey, wait a minute, we divide, because a fraction is a division problem. We have 23 and we're splitting it up into pieces of 3s, right? So in order to turn that into a mixed number, we would do 23 divided by 3. Okay, it goes in there 7 times, which is 21. So we can make 7 wholes, and just like the beginning of the year, we can turn our remainder into a fraction, 2 over the divisor, which is 3, so 7 2/3. So we figure out a mixed number by dividing, because a fraction is a division problem, okay? Another way to think of this is to say, let's say we've got 2 sandwiches, okay? I'm making square sandwiches just because it's easier, okay? So let's say we have 2 sandwiches, but you have 3 friends, and you want to share these sandwiches equally. So I have 2 sandwiches, and I want to share them equally with 3 people. How much is each person going to get? Well, each person is going to get 2/3 of the sandwich, because 2 divided by 3 is 2/3. Okay, let's draw it and see why. Okay, so because if we took each sandwich and we went 1, 2, 3, we cut that into 3 pieces, I get 1 piece from this sandwich. We cut this sandwich into 3 pieces, and I get 1 piece from this sandwich. I have got 2/3. I've got 1/3 from here and 1/3 from there. So I get 2/3 of a sandwich altogether. 2 sandwiches divided among 3 friends, okay? The other way you can think about it is, again, if you did it out as a division problem, 2 divided by 3, 3 cannot go into 2. So you don't get a whole sandwich. So, but you have 2 leftovers. You still have leftover because you couldn't do anything. And you turn that leftover into a fraction by putting that number underneath it. So you get 2/3. Okay? So this is where it is. Another way to think about it is to think about a fraction actually being a division symbol. So remember, a division symbol looks like this, right? And a fraction, if you change this into a dot and this into a dot, is a division symbol. Top divided by bottom. So if anybody were ever to ask you, so this is kind of cool, so you can look really smart. If you were ever taking a test or doing something and they said solve 14/7, and you're like, solve 14/7, what does that mean? That means top divided by bottom. So when you get into more complicated algebra and you have something like 2a plus 6 minus 3 over 2 plus b, don't worry about having to solve that. But if you did, all that this line means is that whatever this is, you divide it by what's underneath, just like a fraction, top divided by bottom, okay? In another instance, another problem, let's say, I don't know, cupcakes are good. I like cupcakes. Let's go with cupcakes. Let's say we've got cupcakes. That's some weird looking frosting, but that's okay. That's even worse. Let's say we've got 3 cupcakes. Okay. 3 cupcakes, but we have 6 friends. Is that right? 3 divided by 6? Oh, that's, I don't know about that. That'd be some tiny pieces. Let's try something different. Let's say we have 3 cupcakes and 2 friends. Okay, so you guys all want to share the cupcakes evenly. There's 3 of them. So the easiest way to do that is to say, fine, I get half of this one, I get half of this one, and I get half of this one. So one person gets half of this cupcake, half of this cupcake, and half of that cupcake. 3 divided by 2 is 3 over 2. The first number is always the number that's being divided, remember. So if you were doing a division problem, it would be the number that goes inside the box. That's always the first number. And the second number goes outside the box. So when you're dealing with a fraction, the first number goes on top and the second number goes on the bottom. So the top number is always the number that is being divided. It is the number that goes inside the box. So you have 3 divided by 2. Well, you can see, obviously, that if you put all your pieces together, you're going to get to eat more than 1 cupcake. You're going to get to eat 1.5 cupcakes. And we also know that because we know that 3 halves is an improper fraction, and we know how to turn an improper fraction into a mixed number. Top divided by bottom. 2 goes in there once. We have a leftover of 1, and we can turn that leftover into a fraction by putting the divisor underneath it. So we each get 1 whole and 1/2 of a cupcake. Okay? So a fraction is a division problem. So if you have, somebody asks you what 1 divided by 6 is, the answer is 1/6. If somebody asks you what 10 divided by 5 is, the answer would be 10/5. But since 10/5 is an improper fraction, you would put it into a mixed number, which would be 2, which we know. All right, so a fraction is a division problem. Top divided by bottom.